Welcome to 5G Things focus session on the future of edge. And the edge is really the sweet spot where we are blurring the boundaries between the device, the network edge and the public cloud, and increasingly so because we are using distributed compute. Everything will in the future be possible to view as a single unified integrated execution environment for distributed applications, for network functions, and of course for third-party applications. And the technologies that underpins the network compute fabric of the future is really seamless task mobility, it's about hardware accelerators, and it's very much about real-time properties. And in the long run, we will even include advantages of new computer paradigms. And the edge is really where 5G and AI come together. So let's explore the future of edge, and also welcome to 5G Things and this CTO Focus Session, where I've invited Ronnie Vasishta, Senior Vice President of NVIDIA, to have a discussion about edge. And welcome Ronnie Vasishta, Senior Vice President and Head of the Telco Business Unit at NVIDIA. Welcome, Ronnie.
Thank you, Erik. Nice to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, likewise. Really great to be able to talk about such important things as 5G, the edge, XR, AI, and all that. But let's bring the audience back to something we did together already last year. You remember we actually announced that we had worked together between NVIDIA on your RTX GPU, the Cloud XR, and your virtualization software, Ericsson, with a 5G network, end-to-end with high performance, ultra-low latency, and then with Qualcomm with their reference design, the XR2 5G reference design for a head-mounted display. And we actually showed it end-to-end how great it would be, and taking all the effort to really integrate it as one solution. And I think that's really where the industry needs to go, to make these collaborations work end-to-end and create new user experiences. But that's also going to take me to my first question for you, Ronnie. So this is really about also the capabilities that we are putting into the network. So how do you see the future of the edge? And perhaps what are the things that are different from a distributed connected data center and the nodes that you have in that?
Yeah, great question. So, I think as we start to look at the network, we've got to think differently. Today we talk about the near edge, the far edge. Going forward, this is going to be a combination of distributed data centers. It's going to be a data center where you need it and when you need it. And those data centers are going to have the right level of provisioned AI, storage, and compute, and of course, connected on a high-performance network.
I'd like to think that would also allow you to move around with your devices, and of course the application would move as well in a seamless way. And to your point, this is really also about leveraging even higher performance, real-time infrastructure that is then getting integrated with the capability, the accelerators and the distributed fabric of compute wherever you need it. I think this is a great opportunity, both on the consumer side and of course on the industrial and the enterprise use cases. Having that ubiquitous compute and the resources available basically everywhere, that's really how I think we can take the next step in the ecosystem. And thinking about the ecosystem here, what updates do you see on the application side in the edge and perhaps also in the far edge? And how do you see AI playing a big role in this? I think we may be able to go into some details also about the different industrial use cases and how that will transform the industries, perhaps even touching on healthcare as one of the examples.
Yeah, I think it's really a great time to be in an industry like ours. I won't be the first to say, every industry is going to transform within the next 10 years. If you think about today, we're already starting seeing evidence of that with smart agriculture, for instance, drones and robots cultivating fields and applying the right amount of fertilizer at the right points and the right time, the weather prediction that enables that, the combination of these things being much higher productivity. Transportation, for instance, becomes a huge AI optimization capability as well. And points of that, we talked about the network and data center along the points of transportation, whether it be for cargo or for people. Healthcare, you mentioned, healthcare becomes much more personal. Data collection and data analysis at the point of use, where you need it, at the person, whether it be the biometrics of a person and the ability to then apply information to that person or to a group of people on a global scale. It's really quite dramatic how industry will transform in the next 10 years. Mm.
Yeah, I think you said it well. It's hard to see any industry that will not really be reinvented or benefit from this transition. I think it's kind of obvious that edge compute, in the way we think of it as a perhaps distributed fabric, we talk about it as a network compute fabric in the 2030 perspective, and you think about the network being a cognitive network with AI built in. All of these things will, of course, change the way that we look at the digital infrastructure itself. And that will open up for completely new use cases where we have low latency or guaranteed latency. We have the performance under an SLA. And I think that will really create this next generation of innovation. Whether it's on the consumer side, as we started to talk about, or perhaps even more important on the enterprise side, the efficiency gains and the new ways of working. And talking about the industry, Industry 4.0 and the transformations that are really within that, how do you see the connection then to the edge?
Yeah, so, we talk about Industry 4.0 as a talking point, but really, if you think about it, it's the fourth industrial revolution. There's only been three since the 1700s, so the impact is profound. And really, it's the digitization of automation. And as you start to look at what the context we're talking about, the edge, or a data center where you need it, it's having that ability to have the compute, the connectivity, like you talk about on a fabric with low latency, for instance, as and where you need it, whether it be on the factory floor, whether it be in the field, or whether it be any other part of the transportation industry, for instance. AI will write the software that optimizes the end devices. And we talked about, drones spraying fields or drones being able to be leveraged in delivery of packages and parcels and medicines and coverage across the world where today there is no coverage. So industries are going to be transformed, as we said, in the next 10 years. And those events are already starting to happen.
Thanks for bringing that one up, Ronnie. I think this really, the notion of the network compute fabric that is pervasive, the fact that you need connectivity everywhere. Of course, you need it in the cities, but you also need it in rural area. You get great examples of agriculture, but transportation, logistics are similar. And of course, you need it indoors. So 5G is really about providing that connectivity everywhere with gigabit per second speeds and this low latency and the guarantees that allows you to explore new business opportunities. And I think downtime is typically extremely expensive in these industrial cases and in the enterprise space. So we need to pay very close attention to making sure that we actually provide certainty, that we provide the reliability and the resiliency when we are using the edge to run some of these applications. But if we look a little bit further out, I also see that we can look at more extreme use cases of tomorrow. And I think this is really where the extreme bandwidth, perhaps even stretching today's 5G system, will come in. High throughput, of course, increased security and the millisecond latencies that are guaranteed. And this will really open up for closed-loop industrial control system automation. This will be about industrial robotics. It will, of course, be about the XR that we talked about. It will also be about really advanced feedback systems like real-time synchronous haptic feedback, and of course also cooperative driving and beyond that. So I think these are just examples of where the combination then of the network fabric, the performance together with the cognitive part of the AI piece, and of course the edge compute needs to come together. So I'm very, very sort of seeing a lot of opportunities here already with some of the early commercialization that we're going through. But as we're building this network edge then, or the compute network fabric, what use cases do you see then, and what are their requirements on the network, since you are so sort of close to the application developers and the actual accelerators?
Yeah, so the requirements on the network, really the good thing and the bad thing is it differs. Let's say if you're looking at applications on a factory floor, for certain types of application, there's a robot involved. the network needs to be instantaneous. The proximity needs to be to detect that robot and send information back within a few centimeters. If you're thinking about a car that's driving autonomously on a road as it's going out of a dark tunnel into a light and making a right-hand turn, that decision needs to be made in the car. But then if you think about things like predictive maintenance on transportation, whether it be trains or planes or cars, you know, the sensors will be able to listen for issues, be able to optically detect issues. A lot of that data can be uploaded on a daily basis or on a nightly basis. It doesn't need to be instantaneous. And there the network behaves and the requirements on the network are different. So that orchestration of the services on top of the network are really dependent upon application developers. And I think what NVIDIA, what we've tried to do is build platforms, you know, a hardware platform, the orchestration platform, and then the application platform. And the application platform can run on APIs that the developer can say, yeah, I need to lock into the network that can provide me a millisecond of latency. Another application the developer can say, I need to lock into the network that I can be high throughput, high data, you know, gigabit per second type throughput. And I need to do that on perhaps a more infrequent basis. So this orchestration piece is going to be very, very critical.
Yeah, I cannot agree more, Ronnie. I think that is really what brings it together, the network and the compute fabric. And of course, we're already starting to see how these collaborations open up for SLA-based API access so that you can get this kind of performance. And I think that this is also why we see in our research that already by 2023, some 25% of the 5G use cases, they are forecasted to some extent, smaller or larger extent, really leverage the edge compute. And I think that's a fantastic evolution just over the few years until 2023. So that was a little bit about the capabilities here and the requirements on the network. If we turn more to the business potential then and what we see there, what do you see that the edge can provide from that perspective?
Yeah, so, you know, some reports are already putting the economic value of the combination of AI and 5G in excess of $10 trillion of economic value by the year 2035. And if you start to drill down into that kind of number, you can start to look at some of its productivity improvement in businesses. Businesses become more productive as they're able to analyze more data, use more data. There's the creation of new businesses that are, again, driven by that ability to now have data as and where you need it and connectivity as and where you need it. Across the world, there's going to be more coverage of the network. And so now, you know, in terms of rural areas, for instance, that's going to be, I think, closing a lot of the digital divide that exists today. And that has a big impact on whether it be farming or education or growth of small towns and industries within small towns. So the economic value and the economic impact of the combination of AI and 5G, which is really the data center, AI-enabled data center in the network, you know, really cannot be underestimated. And I think the numbers of $10 trillion plus could be, you know, much greater than that. What it really says that impact is very, very large.
And I think if you tie that value to some of the capabilities that we've talked about, of course, a low latency is what comes to mind. But it's also other capabilities that has to do with offload of the device processing, and it's about security, the high bandwidth, of course, the guarantees, data privacy, all of those things. It's really handled by this edge or the network compute fabric. But one example then more on the business side that is already starting to happen, I would say, when it comes to 5G deployment, is about gaming and cloud gaming. And that community is really very, very much pushing us when it comes to the limit of what the network can do. So I'll share a few of the stats from our latest mobility report. And as we all know, mobile gaming is today really dominated by casual gamers. But with 5G and the edge compute, we're really bringing the capabilities that we talked about now into new segments. And this is really high quality experiences. And of course, this is accessible without expensive, unique hardware. And of course, that opens up a lot of opportunities, both for the developers as well as for the gamers. So if you look at more than 100 service providers around the world that have launched commercial 5G offerings, more than 20 of those have announced mobile cloud gaming services. And I think that's a good testament that these capabilities are starting to be explored also commercially. And these offerings are pretty advanced already today. And these advanced gamers, they will of course require much more than a best effort system. We're talking about time-critical cloud gaming use cases. We're talking about fast multiplayer interactions. We're talking about guarantees of 20 to 30 milliseconds end-to-end network latency, and maybe a 99.9% likelihood or reliability of both uplink and downlink being there for you while you're gaming. And I think these requirements now would then be monetized, for example, in these cloud gaming offerings. So I think it's already taking foothold in the market, and I think much more to come, both on that consumer side as well as on the enterprise side. But turning back then a little bit to how you see how we should realize this potential across the capabilities of both technology and business.
Yeah, so cloud gaming is a great example. You've mentioned it. NVIDIA is involved already today in many of those operators delivering that cloud gaming experience over the 5G network today. And as we start to see that grow, we'll start to see, obviously, as you mentioned, the business associated with that grow. And new business models created as well that don't exist today. Immersive experiences in general, I think, are a tremendous opportunity and put a strain on the network. That immersive experience has to be real. Right? And in some cases, it's actually mission critical to have those immersive experiences. Then, whether you're on the factory floor and you're diagnosing and doing diagnostics on a piece of equipment or a plane, for instance, or whether you're having an immersive experience as a tourist and you're interacting with other people around the world, the network has to support these. And but what it does do is it opens up those business models that we talked about earlier and unlocks the potential that now you can do a lot more by having that information or that experience right where you need it. And I think that when we start to look at the leverage of AI, it actually helps the network cope with many of these capabilities, not just in terms of the data and throughput that's required to be delivered real time, but also in the optimization and the orchestration of the network to be able to adapt to maybe users over here that have an immersive experience, yet the network is down here. You know, when stadiums are full, the immersive experience is much higher, the requirements. But when the stadium is empty at night, there you don't need to have so much of the network configured to support that, for instance.
And I think that's a great example, Ronnie, of the flexibility that the network infrastructure needs to cater for. We have technologies such as network slicing to complement what we do with the edge compute. We have capabilities when it comes to really bringing in the right capabilities of the network when it's needed, as you pointed out. And this is really about bringing the network closer to the user and the application. And what we are doing is really to use the technologies to create better availability, stability, and of course performance of the infrastructure to serve those needs. And this is really where it's opened up also for all the more advanced use cases that we talked about. I think that some of the work that we are doing now, pioneering together with partners like what we're doing between Ericsson and NVIDIA, but also with many, many others in the enterprise and industrial ecosystem, it will really unleash. Of course, we will find new things, new requirements that we'll cater for in the infrastructure, but it will also be about collaboration in an open ecosystem. This is about standardization, this is about open APIs, this is about how we foster this collaborative culture. And we work in forums like the 5G ACIA, the 5G AA, the AECC, for just to name a few, that are really bringing 5G together with edge compute, together with AI at the edge. And I think these capabilities now are being then commercialized based on exposure, based on open APIs, and of course, orchestration end-to-end, as you pointed out several times. So I think it's a good time to reach out. It's a good time to work across the ecosystem to create these opportunities. But let me go back to where we started this discussion, Ronnie. We talked a little bit about the experience from last year when we brought the split rendering or the capabilities of a high-end device, a head-mounted display, to a more lightweight form factor through offloading and putting the compute on the network edge. This is really an opportunity that is becoming real right now, although there will come more capabilities going forward. How do you see that we should think about this offload of device intelligence to the network?
Yeah, so I think part of the benefit of having the data center where you need it, when you need it. A data center can be, a head-mounted display. It can be a phone. It can be a car. The ability to have that optimization and offload, as you say, is going to be critical to enabling that size, weight, and power of device, the user experience of the device. There's going to be times when the network is going to be able to offload the accelerated compute from a device, for instance. And it can do that because, as you mentioned, the throughput, the latency that is enabled. There's going to be times when the network is going to not be required in terms of the offload. We mentioned earlier a car example of making an instant decision in a car. That decision needs to be made in the car. But the data that can be sent up overnight, then you can offload a lot of that, the data and the compute to the cloud. And cloud gaming is a great example in immersive experiences that we've talked about. How much of the compute do you want to have on the device or on the headset versus in the cloud? Deliver the SLAs per the user experience, and then offload the rest in terms of maybe training of data in AI. And that's where the platforms I think that NVIDIA has been working on will help in terms of those open APIs and the ecosystem to help develop those applications.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. All the graphics, storage, and computation horsepower of a rack of service can really be made available in these lightweight devices since, of course, as we've said many times now, latency differences between executing purely on the mobile device versus at the network edge or the network compute fabric and the data center that's as close by is below our human perceptual threshold. So this is really where we open up for application developers to execute where it makes sense. Thank you so much, Ronnie. This was a great discussion to entertain, and of course, knowing that we are in the middle of this through the partnership as well as working with the developers, the application developers, and the broader ecosystem. I think it opens up great opportunities for the whole industry. So thanks a lot for taking the time.
Thank you very much, Erik. It's been a great conversation. And as you quite rightly said, it's a partnership like ours that are going to help drive this ecosystem and the industry forward.
Thank you. So I've now been joined by Ericsson's Group Chief Architect, Matthias Rimbark. So Matthias, welcome.
Thank you.
We are in the middle of 5G build-out around the world. They come quite far in many markets, and now we're in the early phases of building out the edge, high-demanding applications and all the things we talked about now with Ronnie. So what's your take on where we are in the industry, the ecosystem development and the maturity?
Yeah, I must say I echo Ronnie's perspective on the technology readiness of the industry. The technology is in place, the network is in place, the use cases, the demand for the new applications are there, and most important of all, we have the orchestration foundation for being able to manage these workloads across the globe in a coherent fashion by guaranteeing the service level agreements.
Yeah, and I think that's really where it comes down to. How do we make sure that these early examples that we work with leading partners in our D15 Santa Clara Innovation Labs, how they can scale for use cases around the world, global scale. And I think that's also something that together with the orchestration piece has to come together. So what's your thought on the remaining challenges here?
I think the biggest challenge is finding the balance between differentiation and globalization, making the APIs available to the vast majority of the applicators in a simple way with an easy-to-use network abstraction.
And I think there we are actually making good progress across the partnerships, across the ecosystem to make it simple, but also to focus on the most relevant one and not completely flood the market with capabilities that are not in prime time already. So if I would summarize your takeaway then, Matthias, again, you're saying that the timing is right, prime time for these capabilities. You're also saying that the application development ecosystem is ready. We have to do more when it comes to the exposure part, the API part, but it's potentially ready because of the immersive experiences, the XR, but also the AI cases and the high demanding industry cases. And then on the challenging side, or the challenges that remains, it's really to realize that this has to be a global offerings. We have to orchestrate across the global infrastructure, but we also need to strike the balance between the differentiation part and, of course, the globalization of the global part. So I think that's really great news for the industry. We have some more work to do, but we've come a very long way right now. Thank you, Matthias.
Thanks, Erik.
We started this session by digging deep into the future of the edge and the challenges that it will solve. And while many of us think about augmented and virtual reality technologies as solutions or parts of a consumer experience today, what we know is that with 5G and the edge, this will be a capability also for enterprises and industries as they digitalize. In fact, some of the examples are really mind-boggling when it comes to using a highly capable radio network, core network, together with the edge to deliver high-performance capabilities. And this is why augmented and virtual reality will be a game changer also for industries and enterprises when they digitalize, and this will really unleash exponential opportunities for us. Thank you so much for watching this episode, and also want to welcome you to follow us in the continued sessions when it comes to Edge and 5G. Thank you.